Coming out of the March for Life, there was a lot of discussion in the media about what the new kind of bans on abortion were doing inside of culture. Some new reporting that's come out, especially from states that have significant restrictions on abortion, shows some really promising news. There's more humans alive today because of what those states did than before. But having this kind of conversation with our kids and preparing them for the conversation that's happening in the world can feel really daunting. Sometimes it can put us as parents in a dark place. Well, today in the Celebrate Kids podcast, in our daily segment, Facing the Dark, Dr. Kathy's going to go at this topic. How do we talk to our kids about the right for life? And how do we do it in a way that actually celebrates identity and purpose and looks beyond the ideas inside of political movements? So let's turn now to Dr. Kathy Cook.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, in an analysis of fertility dynamics after Texas's 2021 6-week abortion ban, the University of Houston found that the overall Texas fertility rate rose by 2%. When that's analyzed by race and ethnicity, that breaks down as kind of a 5% rise in Hispanic women and a 0.9% rise in non-Hispanic women, with some declines in other populations. The study also found a slight increase in Texas teen births, reversing the state's steady teen birth rate decline since 2007. That birth decline had totaled over 67% over 14 years. When we break this down by ethnicity and race, the 2022 teen fertility rate continued to decline among white teens while showing small increases among other minorities. So, Dr. Kathy, the University of Houston report is really being touted in the media as kind of a highlight that the 6-week abortion ban in Texas is something that's negatively impacting teens, even though this is really the first time in the last 14 years that the state's fertility rate isn't declining. What do you think these trends tell us about abortion specifically, rather than kind of what the news is telling us?
I would say first that for the conclusion to be that this data demonstrates that the abortion ban is negatively impacting teens is somewhat ridiculous, because the data says to me that abortions are declining and people are choosing to give birth to human beings. And so that is not a negative effect on teens. If teens get pregnant, whether they want that child or not, abortion is going to be harmful. It will kill a human being, and it will come back. That decision, even if the teenage girl wants it now, the decision will come back later to bite them. And so it's not a negative finding; it's a positive finding.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I do really believe it is a positive finding, especially when we hear these ideas that abortion bans are really harmful for society, and we're seeing actually that it's actually increasing or stopping the steady decline, which, as many have touted, kind of in different sociological settings and circles, that the most productive predictor of a society's ongoing progress is, are they replacing themselves, right? That's something that we've heard from a number of different ministries, but I kind of want to highlight one ministry that we're big fans of and work with, and that's the Colson Center, because they've really highlighted that Roe versus Wade really ended up impacting every aspect of society. So many times we kind of look at abortion as something that kind of impacts just kind of, women or those kind of in impoverished kind of settings. But the Colson Center highlights that it impacts every dynamic of society. What does an open view of abortion, abortion that has kind of unfettered access through all weeks of kind of development and all of those dynamics due to the areas of identity? How does abortion impact, especially the 5 core needs that everyone has?
If we say that we can kill a human being, and I'm using human instead of child because I like to remind people that we're not killing babies with stinky diapers. We're killing human beings. Well, obviously they don't have a stinky diaper in utero. What I'm saying is that we're not killing babies. We're killing human beings that were designed by God in his image for such a time as this to bring him glory. And so if we say that we can kill people, and especially if we say that it's okay to kill them up until they're born, then why would a 1-year-old living human being doubt that she was wanted? Of course she would doubt that she was wanted. She could have been killed in utero. but she was born. And so, and she's like 1 year. She doesn't understand it at age 1. I know that, but she will begin to understand it at age 5, 6, 7, and 17. So if she believes that, I maybe I wasn't supposed to be born, then she could decide to take her life. She could decide to be apathetic about the life she has, and she could decide to abort a baby she might conceive one day because it's more convenient, because life doesn't matter. Core needs. Yeah, I can elaborate on the core needs a little bit. It starts with security, right? Security. Who can I trust? If I cannot trust my birth mother, and if I cannot trust the man that contributed to that birth, then, who can I trust? So I think it all starts with security, then identity. What if their claim is I'm unwanted, their belonging? Well, my mom has admitted to me that she thought about aborting me. My grandmother was mad that she got pregnant with me and I'm just in the way. I wonder if that line of thinking happens partly because of this straight across the board belief in abortion.
Yeah, Dr. Kathy, I do think that those are really important dynamics of this whole issue. I want to talk about this kind of as we close, because I think that it's interesting how this Texas law has kind of impacted Hispanic births. At least that's according to the data, right? Maybe there was a trend or a movement inside of Hispanic culture already that they would be turning their birth rate around. But there is some aspect of the Hispanic culture that for the most part, they have a high value on family and on kids. What are some things that we can do kind of in our homes to also foster a culture that celebrates life, but also celebrates kids?
Right. Do we pay attention to them? Do we want them? Do we play with them? Do we, enjoy reading bedtime stories? Or do we appear to be upset that, again, you're going to bed and again, you need a story? So, yeah, do we find joy in our children? Do we revel in the family that God has ordained us to be? So important that kids feel liked and loved, both wanted, and the multi-generational family. Wayne, that I was raised by very good parents with one brother whom I loved and still do. And we were raised geographically extremely close to grandparents, went to church with them, and emotionally and socially close to them as well. And it makes a difference. And that's one of the things that the Hispanic culture gets very well, is they often do live together in a multi-generational home. And so that is influential.
What's the value then with that? Like having a multi-generational home, let's say that we don't live necessarily close to our parents, or we don't feel like we have connection with other generations. Maybe it's something inside of our community structure. Our kids go to school and we don't have contact with anyone that's, 55 plus. Do we need to go to, the restaurants and go and find those people that are ordering off that menu? How do we kind of build that relationship with those that are older than us to start to bridge some of those gaps and provide those opportunities for our kids?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I do think the multi-generations are valuable. I think kids can learn a lot from people who are older than them and older than their parents, not just about history, but about life and character and purpose and so many other things. I know of some church families that have asked older people to be the children's adoptive grandparents. And so they go to the grandparent day at school, and they make a point of going to the Upwards basketball games and cheering on these adopted grandchildren. I think that's precious. So if it's possible, let's do it. As older people, let's reach out and let's look in our churches. Who's alone and who's lonely? Single mom, single dad, young couple overwhelmed. Can we be a blessing? And there's no shame in young people reaching out and saying, hey, I'd love you to be a part of the action. There's something really precious about being known and being wanted. And the more that we can surround ourselves with people who want to be known by us and as a part of us, yeah, I think that's just so rich.
To close, I'd like to have you kind of talk to this kind of final point that I think that people like, the Legacy Coalition, our friend Larry Fowler over at the Legacy Coalition, right? What they're doing is really ministering to those who are older, that in some ways you're in the golden age of your life where you have more, resources, more time. What would you say to a grandparent or to somebody that might be entering that age of having a little bit more resources or having a little bit more time? What would you say to encourage them that now is the time to also then get back into and reinvest in kids?
I love that. Yeah, to get out of the house and to love well. The first thing I think of is to not judge, but to love. I think one of the reasons that older people may disengage is they don't understand today's young people. I totally get that. I don't understand all the young people that I even, talk to parents about. I don't understand all the social media platforms. I don't need to understand them in order to understand enough to say something that's wise and wonderful. But I think for our older people to know that it's about being present, about playing checkers and teaching a kid how to play chess, talking about the stories from your childhood. I used to walk 5 miles up the hill to school, both directions, talk about the stories, teach the kids how life was led. And it's good for you to get out of the house and to be loved for sure. So don't judge. Don't worry about understanding everything. Simply be present and be willing to love as God has loved you.
Where this conversation went was really life-giving. It was really fun because it talked not only about the young that we protect, but also about the old and what the seniors in our lives actually have to engage and help us as parents and even for our kids. It reminded me of a passage out of 1 John chapter 2, and I'm going to begin reading at verse 7. Beloved, I am writing you no new commandment, but an old commandment that you had from the beginning. The old commandment is the word that you have heard. At the same time, it is a new commandment that I am writing you, which is true in him and in you, because the darkness is passing away and the true light is already shining. Whoever says he is the light and hates his brother is still in darkness, and whoever loves his brother abides in the light, and in him there is no cause for stumbling. But whoever hates his brother is in the darkness and walks in the darkness, and does not know where he is going, because the darkness has blinded his eyes. I am writing to you, little children, because your sins are forgiven for his name's sake. I am writing to you, fathers, because you know him who is from the beginning. I am writing to you, young men, because you have overcome the evil one. I write to you, children, because you know the Father. I write to you, fathers, because you know him who is from the beginning. And I write to you, young men, because you are strong, and the word of God abides in you, and you have overcome the evil one. I love the way that Paul kind of attacks this writing, this commandment that he gives to the early church. And he gives the commandment later on in this chapter. I encourage you to go read it, 1 John chapter 2. But the way that he lays it out and the reason why he writes to these young men and to the children and to the old men and the society is really important. There's a connection that happens here that John recognizes, and there's a reason why we need all of this connection, from the old to the fathers to even the children. And it's about to bring about the glory of God in the moment that we're in. And so I hope that's an encouragement for you as you're connecting with your kids to find those that are senior than you. And maybe you are in the senior age. Maybe you need to go and find some kids to walk through life with their parents. I think doing these things, engaging this in some of the same ways that John does here in his letter, I think doing that is going to shine a bright light in dark times when we're all kind of feel like we might be grasping about, trying to get our way through and make it through this day. Doing it together, especially in a multi-generational setting, that's an encouragement. That's a thing that gives courage to others. I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast in this daily segment, Facing the Dark. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender, and I'm so thankful that you listened today, and we're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.